right, well, we leveled out a little bit, so we will go ahead and get started. I know we've got lots of information and lots of questions, so we will just go ahead and get moving. The purpose for today's discussion is really all about the new online hiring tool. We have seen quite a few supervisors utilize the tool so far, which is great. We've seen a few hundred hires come in through it, so we're really excited about it. I know we've had a little bit of bumps in the road with it. There have been some growing pains, especially with the Equifax portion of it. We were struggling to get Equifax up and running. The day that we launched the system, we thought that they were in place and up and running and everything was great, and something broke on their end, and it broke in a big way. So it really put kind of a negative cloud over the launch of our online tool. So I'm happy to share that Equifax is not broken any longer and that everything is operating the way that it should be. So moving forward, everything that you need to utilize the tool for is operational. We'll do a quick process overview. What we are not going to do today is do a step-by-step or anything like that. I will show you where you can find a short 10-minute tutorial video that will walk you step by step through using the online tool. So we're not going to do that today, so we can keep enough time to answer some questions, show you some of the new features. Over the course of the past couple weeks, we have added some new features to it based on feedback from our supervisors. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the way that the I-9 needs to be completed moving forward, and show you where you can find help, the step-by-step guide, the tutorial, and all of that information. For those of you new to the student employment program, we are your student employment team. We are a small team of 5. We handle all of the hiring of student employees on campus. All of the payroll changes, all of that information comes through our office. So we are processing thousands and thousands of transactions every year to keep your students employed and on your payroll. So let's talk about the online hiring tool. First of all, the website to go to is studenthire.rit.edu. Anyone who attended our SEO Q&A session last month was given immediate access to the system. If you do not have access, if you've tried and you've been denied, then you can self-request access to the student hire tool. You would do it through Oracle. You'll log into Oracle as yourself, click on Preferences, click on Access Request, and then you're going to look for RIT Student Hire Request. Check mark that box and hit Submit. I believe it has to go through the channel of approvals, but it's relatively quickly, and then it gives you access to be able to utilize the online hire tool. I will tell you that if you are hesitant to try it, or you're happy using the paper tools, the paper forms, the online hire tool takes probably about 35 seconds for you to submit a student hire. So the speed of which it goes through, you can now save templates in there, which I'll show you in a few minutes, but you can spend a lot less time on your student hiring by utilizing the online tool. We've made it very user-friendly. If you're hiring a student at minimum wage, which is currently $14.20, there's only one page that you really need to fill out, and that page includes the supervisor name, the department name, the department account, and the RIT Career Connect number. And that's pretty much all the information you need to know aside from the student's UID. Enter that information, click Submit, and you're good to go. If you are hiring at a higher rate, there is a second page that you will need to fill out, which looks just like our current paper advanced level job description. It simply requires a couple checkboxes and maybe a little bit of notes, but again, it doesn't add much time to your hiring process. So if you're hesitant to try it, I strongly encourage you to give it a try. It's so fast. If you submit a hire in the morning, there is a very, very good chance that it will be in your Chronos by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, as long as there's no issues that we need to work around or fix or double check on. A straightforward hire generally is in the system by mid-afternoon. So a couple things to remember as you're using the online hire tool. A brand new student hire who has never worked for RIT before, these are the students that need to do the I-9 in order to start working. That I-9 is now triggered by you as the supervisor. So you go to studenthire.rit.edu. You will submit the university ID to trigger the Equifax new hire packet, which now includes part 1 of the I-9. The link that we were previously using is no longer active. So if you could do us a favor and remove that from all of your documentation that you're providing to new students would be extremely helpful. But that link is no longer active. The link that they receive in their email, in their new hire packet, is the I-9 Part 1 link. So if you submit a university ID number today to trigger that new hire packet, your new student employee will get an email tomorrow morning. They will actually get 2 emails. They will get one with the username and the link to their packet, and they will get a second with a password. It is a computer-generated, very complex password that they need to copy and paste exactly. They cannot add any spaces. They cannot add any characters. It has to be copied and pasted exactly into Equifax, and then they'll be able to access their new hire packet. The things they receive in their new hire packet will be part 1 of the I-9, their direct deposit information so that they can set up their direct deposit, all of the New York State compliance documents that we are, as an employer, required to provide to every single new employee when they start working. These documents include New York State COVID pay documentation, New York State right to breastfeed documentation, paid family leave. So all of these state compliance documents that we are required to present to employees are included in this packet, as well as some policies and procedures for working at RIT. So they're going to receive 2 emails. They need to go in, they need to complete all of the documents in their packet for that packet to be considered complete. Once that is done, they will receive another email that says, hey, congratulations, you finished your new hire packet, and now you need to go to the Student Employment Office to complete part 2 of the I-9. So these are what the emails look like. The first email up in the top, congratulations on your RIT student employment job. This will be the email that the student receives with a link to the employment center. It says on the second paragraph, you can access these documents at the employment center. They would click right on that link. That will take them to their packet. If you scroll down a little further, you'll see their login ID for this student. It's BRBUSCH. And then below that green line, that is what the second email looks like. That will include their computer-generated complex password. So for this student, they would copy that complex password starting with the letter 7. So they don't want to copy the semicolons. They don't want to copy the space between that and the 7. They want to start with the number 7 and copy that password and paste it into their new hire packet. That will take them to all of their documents. First, they'll be asked to change their password. And hopefully they change it to something that they can remember. But I've had many students email me saying, I can't get in because I can't remember my password because I changed it. So hopefully they remember it, but they can get in, they can finish all of their documents. Once that is done, they will receive this email, which says, congratulations, you've successfully completed the new hire packet and part 1 of the I-9, and now you need to go to the Student Employment Office and complete part 2. We provide them a link to Career Connect so that they can schedule their appointment. And we also provide them a link to acceptable documents and a note here saying that we cannot accept it if it's not physical, original, or unexpired. That we cannot accept scans, copies, photos, or any other variation. This email goes directly to the students, so there shouldn't be any miscommunication, any misunderstanding. This is what we can accept. So the student goes through this, they schedule their appointment, they come to our office. The very next morning, right after they complete their I-9, you as their supervisor will then receive this email. This email tells you, congratulations, your student worker has successfully completed the I-9 and you may now hire them. We'll provide you the link to the online hiring tool, and remind you that you must use a current or a future date using the online hiring tool. We cannot use a past date. If you have a student who has already started working, which we know they shouldn't, or if you have a student that for some reason didn't get hired and we have to use a past date, that has to come to us on a paper form. The online hiring tool is not set up to use past dates, just future dates. But keep in mind that there is a bit of a delay between when the student completes part 2 and when you receive this email. So if they came to our office today and completed part 2, then tomorrow you will get that email tomorrow morning. The reason for that, and it's the same as what we've been working with all these years, is that we have to wait for Equifax to send us back that list of all of the student employees who have completed their I-9. That always comes back in an overnight feed. Then they always appear in Oracle the next morning. So student comes today, completes part 2 of the I-9. Tomorrow morning, you will receive this email telling you it's okay to go forward with the hiring process. So your student has gone through the I-9, they're all set to be hired, or this is a student that has already worked for RIT in the past, so they don't actually need an I-9. You are going to use the same website, studenthire.rit.edu. You're going to use a future date. Just so you are aware, the online hire tool updates Oracle twice a day. So it's generally around noon and usually around 5 p.m. They generally come from the online hire tool into Oracle. These hires that don't require any SEO review are automatically put in the queue for the next update. If for any reason you enter a hire that needs to be reviewed, then it's put into a pending file for an SEO representative to review and then either approve or reject, depending on the status of the hire. Items that will generally go into pending for review are anything that pays higher than minimum wage. If you're paying minimum wage and the account number is already approved and there's no issues with that hire, that will automatically go to the queue. That requires no review by our office. But anything that has a wage higher than minimum wage, anything that comes in with a date that's prior to today. So if it's a past date, the system is set to automatically put it to pending. And anything where the system has determined that the student is not registered full-time. So the online hire tool does automatically check SIS for registration. If for some reason the student is not registered full-time, it will automatically go into pending for us to review. Now, we know that there are certain situations where a student will not appear registered full-time, but they are eligible to work, such as a student who's working in their final semester of studies. We obviously allow those students to continue working. So that would be a quick approval, we'll send it on its way. Students who are CRP students, we do allow those students to work. That would be a quick review and send it on its way. So most of the reviews that we do take just a couple minutes to either look at it, figure out yes or no, and then send it on its way. If for some reason we do have to reject a submission, you will always receive an email indicating why it was rejected. We will put a quick note in there, whether, we know that the job that you're hiring for is supposed to pay higher than minimum wage, but we notice it's at minimum wage. We may reject that so that you have the opportunity to resubmit it at the correct rate. If a submission has been done more than once, the system is created to look at a student's record, an employment record. And if it sees that a student is already hired on an account that you have attempted to submit again, it will put it into pending so that we can review that and we will reject it. or if the student is not registered and we have to reject it. So if for any reason we have to reject a hire, we will let you know why. It will come in that email directly back to you. So a few things to remember. There is still that 1-day delay after the I-9 is complete, as I explained a few minutes ago. On pay period and Thursday, all submissions need to be in by 4 p.m. Any submissions after 4 p.m. will not be picked up for that pay period. So if you are waiting until the last minute on a Thursday, it's not going to get picked up because the updates stop. The updates will not begin again until after payroll has completed their processing and reopened Oracle. So when payroll is running their payroll process, we are restricted from entering anything into Oracle or uploading anything into Kronos. Your students will not be processed if it's after 4 o'clock on pay period and Thursday. So it's really imperative that you get those in time. And if you are paying higher than the New York State minimum wage, you do have to click the advanced rate box, which I put a little snapshot of what that advanced rate box looks like. You just click that box and it will take you to the next screen where you will enter the rate and then mark why this job is paying a higher rate. If you don't do that, the job will automatically be set up at New York State minimum wage. When you're using the online hire tool, you can use the actual start date. You actually have to use the actual start date. We are not using pay period start dates in the online hire tool. You are using the actual start date, which should be, if it's a brand new student, should be the day that you are told, hey, the I-9 is done, the student is now eligible to be hired. So it shouldn't be any day prior to that. If you are using a paper hire form, then for regular student hires, you can use the actual hire date. But if you're using a change form to make any changes to a job, you must use a pay period start date. So I know that it's going to be a little bit confusing. Just if you can just keep in mind that new jobs can start on any day. Changes to a job can only be done on a pay period start date. So we can't change a wage, we can't change a account number unless it is an actual pay period start date. Hires can be done on any day. That's for regular student workers. Now, co-op students and graduate assistants, they still operate in the same manner they always have, must be done on a pay period start date, must be done on a paper form. At this time, the online hire tool can only be used for regular student workers, which is your 71250 or 71350 hires. And please, 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 only use one of the processes for your hiring. If you submit a student online, please do not follow it up with a paper form. We have different folks within our offices doing the different processes, and one of us may not know that the other one received a hire form or vice versa. So it can lead to a lot of confusion and delays in hires within our office. So if you submit online, please do not follow up with a paper form unless we reach out to you and tell you, hey, I need you to send me the paper form for this. The online hire tool should only take you a couple minutes at most, and that student should appear by the next morning at the very latest in your Kronos. If you don't see them, you can follow up with our office and just let us know, hey, I used the online tool. I got all the way to the confirmation page. Where is my student? And then we can troubleshoot it from there. So we have a new feature within the online hire tool that was actually a suggestion from some of our student supervisors. So thank you for the suggestion. I'm sorry we didn't think of this sooner, but I am so happy that we are able to share this with you now. We have created a template feature so that when you go in and you hire a student, you can save that hire form as a template to be used for future hires. That way, you only have to enter the job the account number once. You only have to enter the RIT Career Connect number once. You only have to enter the wage once, and then save it as a template. You can name the templates anything you want. You can change the templates, delete the templates, add as many templates as you want so that you can utilize them going forward. So those of you that are hiring 50, 75, 100 students at a time, this is going to save you a lot of time. All of that information will be pre-filled for you as long as you save the template. The instructions on how to do so are listed right in the online hire tool. You can follow them step by step and save that template to reuse going forward. So very excited to have this feature. I'm sorry we didn't have it right up front, but thank you for the suggestion, whoever sent it in to us. I know there are actually a couple, I think, that said that it would be helpful. We were able to get that added fairly quickly. And so we have some resources available for you, for anyone within your office who might need a refresher or who hasn't used the system yet. On our website, we have some step-by-step instructions with screenshots to get you through the process of both requesting the new hire packet for your student and how to hire a student. We have an FAQ sheet that should answer a lot of questions that supervisors have. If it doesn't answer your question, certainly reach out to us. We are happy to provide answers, and we are taking those questions that come in, evaluating them and adding them to the FAQ if necessary. So your questions help us create better resources. And we've also created an online tutorial, hire process tutorial. It is a quick 10-minute video that walks you through both procedures of using the online tool. It walks you through how to request the new hire packet, and it walks you through how to submit a hire. So it's only 10 minutes long. You can, fast forward, go back, rewatch, watch it as you're submitting a hire so you can kind of mirror it and follow the instructions. But we've created those tools for you so that you have them at your disposal should it be outside of operations hours and nobody is here in our office to assist you. So we've also received a few questions ahead of this session, which we felt were important to share with the larger group. The first one, will pay increases move to the new process? Not at this time. What we are focused on right now is the actual hiring piece of it. That's what we've committed to as a team, and not just as an SEO team, but as an implementation team, which is also includes an ITS application team. We've committed to creating an online hiring tool. The next steps in this are to add co-ops and graduate assistant hires, which the work will begin on that this week, later on this week. So we hope to have that up and running within the next couple months. Obviously, we have the foundation laid, so hopefully we can get that up and moving pretty quickly. But that's what we've committed to is creating this online process. Any changes will need to be submitted using a paper change form. This one actually came in as a couple different variations of the same question. So, is there a spot to check on the submitted student employment, specifically ones you have already entered? Or is there a possibility of receiving an email when submitting students' hires? So we've had some discussions about how to make the information available to you as you're hiring students. Right now, when you process a hire through the online tool, you get to a confirmation page. That page says, thank you, so-and-so student's name has been submitted for hire. Student employment will review and reach out if there are any questions. You get to that confirmation page, that means that the student hire has been put through and it has either gone into the queue to be uploaded to Oracle, or it has gone into pending for us to review and determine which way it needs to go. We want to avoid providing confirmation emails because we have some departments that hire hundreds of students, and we do not want to bog down your emails with 400, you've hired so-and-so student today, emails at the beginning of the fall semester when you're trying just to get students on your schedule. It's it's going to create more chaos than it's worth. So we are discussing the possibility of some sort of viewing page for you where you would be able to go in and see where your student is, whether it's gone to bed pending or it's in the queue to be uploaded. That is something that, again, we will start talking about later this week when we gather together as a team. But I wanted to share with you that that's where we are right now. We don't want to go down the email route. We don't want to bog down your emails. I think we all get enough emails as it is. And so something like this, I think it'd be easier if we have some sort of view page where you can go to and take a look at that stuff. And that was the extent of the information that I had to share today. I just really wanted to provide some updates, just a quick overview, some of the things that we've seen over the course of the past couple weeks, and share with you that we are now up and running 100%. So those Equifax issues that we had in the beginning, we are, as of September 28th, they are fixed, and we are moving forward and operating the way that the system should operate. With that said, it is now the supervisor's responsibility to make sure you submit that university ID if you have a brand new student, so they receive the new hire packet to their email. Students who come to us who have not received that new hire packet email will be sent back to their supervisors to have that piece done so that they get it. This is the way the system has to work. That link that we were using in the past no longer exists to get to part 1 of the I-9. So we need to ensure that the students are getting that packet with part 1 of the I-9 in their mailbox. If you have, as a supervisor or anyone on your team, needs help figuring out how to trigger that new hire packet using the tool, you can reach out to our office or check the resources that we have available on our website that will walk you through it. Our next session will be November 1st. It's going to be a week early next month because I will be traveling the following week. And we are hoping to have, I have probably 75% confirmation that we will have a couple of payroll folks on with us to answer some payroll questions. So they will walk through, for anyone who is newer to the employment program, how to submit hours using the online payroll change form through Oracle. They will talk to, submitting late hours, things of that nature, and the resources through their office and where to find them, direct deposit resources, things like that. So that will be on November 1st. I don't know exactly who it will be, but I have been told that we have potentially 2 payroll specialists coming to join us. So it's always great when we have them with us. And I am going to jump into the questions, which we have a few that came in. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A function and we will go through and answer those for you. So here's a question that I think I already answered, but we'll answer it again. For a current employee who you need to update their wages, do you use the same link? So no, you have to send a paper change form to make any changes to an existing employee. The online hire form is only to hire students into a new job. How do we get notification that the student may begin working? So if this is a brand new student that has never worked for RIT before, you will get an email notification the day after they complete part 2 of the I-9. You will get an email that says, congratulations, your student has completed the I-9 process and is now eligible to start working, with a link to the online hire form. If your student is a returning student, has worked on campus before, then they should still be submitting their request for an eligibility email through our office. Basically, that email serves in place of an SEO card. The SEO cards that we've been using for the past how many years, long since before I started working here. This email takes place of that card. So if it's an existing student, they have to keep using the same process they were before of requesting eligibility. If it's a brand new student, then you will get the email directly to your inbox that says, congratulations, your student is now eligible to be hired. This is a great question. We do not need to use the online hiring tool for stipend students. Is that correct? Yes, that is absolutely correct. Your students who you are paying leadership stipends or graduate research assistantships to are still utilizing the same process through Oracle that you were using in the past. That process has not changed at all. This online tool is only for hourly hires at this time. All pay increases should still go to SEO submit forms at rit.edu. Yes, that is correct. A change form comes to our office to be processed manually, and the change must be effective the start of a pay period. This question is, if posted jobs start at 1470, does that mean it will have to go to pending? So yes, any job that's paying higher than the New York State minimum wage will go into pending within our office. We will review it, and then it's simply because it's a higher rate and all of the justification is there. It's a quick check mark save, and that goes through. Pending jobs do not sit in our pending box usually for more than 2 or 3 hours, and that might be long, depending on the day. So we try and get all pending jobs out before the next update takes place, and we make sure that there is nothing sitting in pending when we walk out for the day. So all of our boxes are set to 0 at the end of the day. There's nothing in pending. There's nothing that errored. Everything has gone into updating. So this is a great question, Marissa. It says, if the job posting start wage is 1470 and the paperwork is submitted for 1450, they will be rejected, right? So no, that is not always the case. We don't know what you posted your job at. We only know what you're hiring at. So if you attempt to put in a hire at 1450, that's what it's going to go through at. That's what we're going to approve it at. I did make the comment that if we notice that the rate is not correct, and for that, I'm really primarily talking to dining services who we know hire their students at a certain minimum starting rate. So when they come through at minimum wage, we know right off the bat that that is incorrect. It doesn't mean they don't get through, because anything at minimum wage doesn't always come to us as pending. It will not get stopped at our office because you entered the wrong rate, especially if that rate is 1470 and it's supposed to be 1450 or vice versa. That is not information that we have readily available. We are hiring at what you tell us to hire at. Once a student is hired, do they get an email with their badge number? How do they know when it's okay to start working? I just process the paperwork, but they don't work for me. So that's a great question. I'm probably going to give you an answer you don't like. We don't supply the Kronos badge numbers. Those badge numbers have to come from you as a department, as a hiring department. Whoever is responsible for signing off on Kronos is the person who is also responsible for providing the badge numbers to their students. That is also the person that tells the students, hey, you are now in Kronos, it's okay to start working. I understand there's a lot of departments that have paperwork processors and supervisors. But we also have a lot of departments that have that set up, that have really good practices in place to ensure that these supervisors do not allow students to start working until those paperwork processors tell them, hey, it's okay for the student to start working. We have a couple departments who are really our best practice departments. If you need help, if you need guidance on setting up a program within your department to ensure that students aren't working for supervisor A before they've even come to you to fill out their paperwork, I can put you in touch. But it is very difficult within those departments where person A is doing one part of the job and person B is doing the other part of the job, and there's not a really good system in place to make sure that person B isn't doing what they shouldn't be doing before person A says it's okay. Just to be sure, change forms are only done on paper. Yes, change forms cannot go through the online tool. They must be paper forms sent to our email. Will the system detect if we submit a brand new hire if we submit a brand new hire is a returning student employee? So a brand new hire and returning student employee are two different types of students. A brand new hire means somebody who's never worked for RIT before, absolutely never, has no employment record with RIT. A returning student employee has worked for RIT before, maybe not necessarily in your department, but they have an employment record with the university. Yes, our system will determine if that student has worked anywhere on campus. If that is the case, then they will let you move to the next step of processing the hire. If the system determines that this student has never worked anywhere on campus, let alone not your department or anywhere else, then it will go the other route of triggering that new hire packet. But yes, the system is set up to determine which type of student this is. Chenille, you sent a question about 2 students that are not at the correct pay rate. Can you email me directly and we will try and get to the bottom of this? I don't want you to keep going back and forth, but I need to actually take a look at these 2 students and figure out what's going on. So email me directly with their names and UIDs and we'll take a look at this, okay? Great question here. Is minimum wage increasing again at the end of the year? If so, will we have to submit change forms for all students? So it is about that time of year that New York State should be making the announcement, but they have not yet. New York State makes the announcement every year, mid to late October, to let us know if the minimum wage is going up. As soon as we know, we will let you know, but they have not made any announcements yet at this time. If they do raise the New York State minimum wage, then we, in conjunction with payroll, will automatically bring any of your student employees who fall under that new minimum wage rate up to the New York State minimum. So you will not need to submit any change forms for any student who is currently running under whatever the new minimum wage is going to be. Now, if your student is currently above that, whatever that new rate is going to be, and you want to take them higher, then you will need to submit a change form. But to get all of our students to meet the New York State minimum, we will do that automatically. You will not need to do that. That is if the New York State minimum goes up. I need to make sure I clarify that. New York State has not made that announcement yet. It looks like the link for sending the UID in for brand new student workers is the same link for hiring students after they complete their I-9. Yes, that is correct. When you get in there, regardless of whether the student is new or returning, you start with the student's university ID number. The system will take a second to review the student's employment record at that first second that you put the UID in, and then determine which path it needs to take. Does it need to take you to create a new hire packet, or does it need to take you to the online hiring tool? So yes, the website is the same. That's where you start. If you hire a student who is or has worked for RIT before, do we use the new system or paper form? The preference at this point is to move everybody to the online hiring tool, so the new system. We really want you to get comfortable with this. We really want to move as much hiring to this as possible. So I would strongly suggest that you start using that now and get comfortable with it before we start our spring hiring, which hard to believe, but we're only, a couple months away from thinking about spring hires. So you will use the online system as much as you can. Paper forms should only be used if you are hiring using a past date, or we have actually requested a paper hire form from you. The online system must be used to trigger that new hire packet for any new student employee that has never worked for RIT before. So even if you are hesitant to use the system to actually submit hires, you absolutely do need to use the system to trigger the new hire packet. That is the only way that the student is going to receive part one of the I-9 moving forward. Katerina, this is an excellent question. Thank you for bringing it up. What should we do in the case of international students who need a copy of their hire form to apply for a Social Security number? Should we just put together a paper form for them to have? So yes, short answer is yes. The requirement for a paper copy of their hire form is actually a Social Security Administration requirement. It is not an RIT requirement. So the students must have that hard copy hire form in order to go to the Social Security Administration and apply for their SSN. What we have suggested to departments is to have a generic hire form on your desktop that's pre-filled with everything except their personal information. Then you can print that off, handwrite in their start date, and let them fill out their personal information, sign it in blue ink. But yes, because that is an SSA requirement and not an RIT requirement, we do still have to make sure we can provide a hire form to the students, international students who have to apply for a Social Security number. So thank you for asking that. That is a very important question. I love the proactiveness on this. Can students work over winter break, and what are the rules around that? So yes, winter break is coming 2 months away. Students can work over winter break. Students who are working over winter break can work up to 40 hours a week. That can take effect as soon as they are done with their finals for fall semester. They can work up to 40 hours a week. Now, the caveat to that, a couple of them. RIT considers that week between Christmas and New Year's holiday time. It is, holidays for those of us who are faculty and staff. So because RIT considers those holiday times, students are paid holiday time for any hours worked on those days. So those days RIT is closed for Christmas break between Christmas and New Year's. If a student reports hours, they are paid time and a half. So you as the employing department need to set up some guidelines around that. If you do not want your student working that week because you do not have the budget to pay them time and a half, you need to make sure that you share that with them so there is no question. So you share that with them before they leave for the break, before you leave for the break, that during this date, between this date and this date, no work is to be reported. And if you as a department are not working, we strongly suggest that you not have your students working either, because if they have a situation or they have a question or they have an issue, they won't have anybody to reach out to ask questions. If you're not working and they are, and they need you as their supervisor and you're not available, that could lead to some issues down the road. So you want to make sure that there's somebody available for them to reach out and talk to if they need it. And if your budget cannot afford it, make sure you have that discussion ahead of time. Now, with regards to remote work, the remote work policy does say that students can work up to 30 calendar days remotely. So if your student leaves RIT on December 15th, then they can work for 30 calendar days remotely before they need to return back to RIT. That should cover the bulk of the winter break. So there is a yes and make sure they know the guidelines answer to that question. Are the students given information on how to get into Kronos to see their hours and info on how to use the Kronos machines? So information on how to use Kronos machines should be done by the hiring department. You should be having that conversation during your onboarding processes, telling them what their badge number is, showing them where the time clock is so they know exactly where they're allowed to punch in and punch out, and telling them when they're allowed to punch in and punch out. And this is very important because If a department fails to go through this part during onboarding, how is a student to know that they shouldn't be punching in a time clock across campus and walking to their shift? They don't, because they didn't learn that in their onboarding. What you and I think would be common knowledge for an employee, such as you don't punch in over in Global Village and then walk to your job over at Gracie's, it may not be common knowledge to some of these students who have never actually held a job before. We find a large number of our students coming to RIT that have never held a job before. So they don't know what common employment etiquette is. So it's very important that you're having those conversations with them during onboarding, showing them where to punch in, when to punch in, how to punch in, and what acceptable time clocks they can use. If you are a department that allows your students to work in their dorms, in their apartments downtown Rochester, that's fine, but you need to have a process in place for how they can report their hours to you. Whether it's they email you daily with their exact hours work and a short synopsis of what they did during that shift. Weekly, which we don't necessarily recommend. We really do prefer the daily with the start and end time, because at the end of the week, what's to say a student forgot what they worked on Monday or forgot what they accomplished on Monday when Thursday rolls around? And we certainly don't recommend waiting until the end of the pay period, because if a student forgets to send you their time card on Thursday afternoon, and Friday morning rolls around when you need to sign off and you don't have a time card, now you're panic chasing that student, trying to get in touch with them to get their time from them. So daily is much more preferable. Weekly is tolerable as long as you have a good process in place, but we do not recommend at the end of the pay period. During finals week, how does SEO keep track of students' exams to determine if they are finished, or is it based off an honor system with the students? SEO does not track that. You, as their supervisor, need to have that conversation with your students. Hey, when's your last exam? Are you going to be available to work extra hours when that exam is over? How late do you intend to stay here in Rochester and work? Are you headed home? Those are conversations you at the department level need to have with your students. We don't track that. It really is based off honor system between you and your student, but it's important that you have those conversations and that you start having them early. I wouldn't wait until finals week to find out who's going to be sticking around and when their exams are. Start those conversations, a week or two ahead of time so that you know who is going to be around and when they're available. Finals aren't always during their normal class times. So a final may end up being scheduled when they're supposed to be at work with you. So have those conversations ahead of time, but that is something that you at the department level need to discuss with your students. So for remote days, 30 calendar days are allowed within a semester or academic year. It's 30 days within a year. So technically during the year, so if you went on a rolling calendar year, they could do 30 days over the winter break, and then they wouldn't be able to do another 30 days until next winter break remotely. Really, the remote work, there are so many wage and hour regulations, New York State, or I'm sorry, state regulations that we can't manage, which is why we've had to put restrictions in regarding remote work. However, we know that you want your students to be able to work remotely for you throughout the academic year, whether it's on spring break, whether it's on winter break. So that's why we have made this concession with the 30 days. So it really is 30 days in a year. Regarding students reporting remote hours to me as a supervisor, we use a shared Google Sheet that I keep open at all times on my laptop. That way their time is easy to monitor, and I only have to contact the students if there's an issue or missing punches. So Google Sheets are good as long as the shared information is not available to other students where they could edit information. Students shouldn't have access to other students' time cards. They shouldn't be able to see other students' time cards. Google Sheets are great if it's between you and the student. But if it's between you and multiple students, we might want to take a look at that, because we could get into a situation, a timekeeping situation, where other students have access to other students' time cards. So if that's the case, if it's just between you and one student and that's their timesheet, great, you're doing great. You can update it, they can update it. But if it's between you and it's one sheet and you've got multiple students on it, that's not something that we really would recommend. We would like to see that be just between one supervisor, one student, so that nobody else has access to that student's time card punches or the ability to make changes without authorization. These have been some amazing questions, and these questions are what keep these sessions moving forward. So I really appreciate them. We still have a good couple minutes left, and I'm happy to continue taking questions. I actually will open this up to anybody on my team if there's anything that anyone wants to add while we've got a couple minutes. I have one more question. I'm hoping Amanda can help me. I know it's out there somewhere, but I don't know the exact. Can you tell me the link where students can look up their hours that they punched? Is this an Oracle? Thank you. I know it's a Kronos link and I don't know it offhand.
That's a great question, because it's not technically an SEO managed app. And if Nikos is still on here, I think Nikos knows it, but you can pop it in there. If not, I'll look it up and see if I can put it in the
in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. All right. If there's any further questions, happy to answer them. Oh, there we go. Katerina for the win. Let me copy this and put it in the chat for everybody. Oh, shoot. Hold on. I only put it in the chat to the hosts. So let me redo that. User error. Thank you, Katerina, for sharing that. I greatly appreciate it. So there's the link. It's in the chat that you can copy and save and share with your students. That is an HR managed, actually not HR, it's payroll. My apologies. It is a payroll managed process. So questions regarding that would actually go to payroll regarding the actual use of the system. Good question, Nikos. SEO Student Employment Week, it's actually National Student Employment Week. Right now, we don't have any plans for it. I honestly don't even know when it is scheduled for next year for 2024. I am headed to a conference in a couple weeks where I should get some more information and see some best practices from some other universities. So once I do that, I can share a little bit more information with everybody. But as of right now, there are no grand scheme plans for National Student Employment Week. But we always encourage you to celebrate your student employees. I know we can't get by without them, and I'm sure there's a lot of departments on this call today who can't get by without our student employees.